children born, after 1980 in the United States will not outlive their parents. Why? Toxins, all right? Well, and I talk about this all the time, but when we look at the sheer level of toxins that we have in our food, it has gone up exponentially. But isn't it odd how the amount of cancers and the amount of autoimmune disease and the amount of other things have also gone up exponentially as well? Why is nobody making a correlation with these things? And here's the thing about chemicals that have been approved for foods. We have over 30,000 chemicals of food for food. And the crazy thing is that of the thousands, there's a good number of them that have not really been tested by our regulators. We basically take the word of the food manufacturer that these things are what they call generally regarded as safe. Because they have a loophole that they, I think in 1957, that whatever chemicals that, they don't have to test them, they don't necessarily have to prove them, they just have to claim that they're safe, and we accept it. They're generally regarded as safe. But here's the biggest part about it. We've added more things, and although we don't have, some of them we have research on, to be honest, but the truth is, we have zero research on how they interact with each other. So how many people know for a fact that even when it comes down to prescription drugs, right, there's research, at least on prescription drugs, that tell you, do not take this with this because that will cause an adverse reaction. We don't have that information when it comes down to the chemicals in food. We don't. We don't have that information when it comes down to chemicals in food. And so that's why you're seeing a bunch of new diseases, a bunch of new diseases, I have to call it, and ailments, because these things are having negative interactions in human bodies, and the doctors have no idea because they've never seen it before. And medical science and medical research has yet to catch up with it. Why? Because they've never seen it before. All right? And the reason why it's taking so long is because it literally takes years and years for these things to accumulate in your body. And that's why I talk about all the time the 3 steps to healing. One of the number 1 steps is what? Removing the toxic load, right? Because these foods, these chemicals that you're ingesting on a daily basis, you're ingesting small amounts of it, and that's why they can get away with this generally regarded as safe language. But no one's actually quantifying how much of these chemicals you're actually getting. Think about that. No one's actually really counting the actual levels of chemicals that the average person is taking in. Okay? So when we look at, for instance, we look at Coca-Cola, or better yet, we're talking about mouthwash yesterday. So let's look at your mouthwash, right? We're looking at, chlorhexidine in your body. Okay? Well, nobody knows what other products besides that mouthwash that you're consuming that has that particular chemical in it. So the manufacturer of chlorhexidine can say, well, if you use our product and you only use it once a day, right, you should not have a problem with the levels of exposure that you're going to get from this chemical. But no one's taken into account that you might be using 3 other products that have the same chemical in it. And then also no one's taken into account that how does that interact with, take for instance, sodium benzoate? How does that interact with any of the other foods and additives and chemicals that you're putting into your body? Because we do know that chemicals have a reaction at times to other chemicals. No one's taking that into account. And we're just plying our bodies with this stuff. And I want to address something really quickly. I know sometimes it's difficult for people to hear information that makes them uncomfortable. But let's not be stupid, okay? Because so many times I have to answer what I think, and because I'm very careful not to call something stupid, but I have to answer what I would regard as a stupid question or a stupid statement. When somebody says, I've used mouthwash and I'm 53 years old and nothing's ever happened to me. This is bullshit. Well, I think everyone here has that one uncle, okay, who smoked for 80 years and never got lung cancer. But I doubt, despite that being the case, that you're going to actually doubt that cigarettes are bad for you. Okay? Full disclosure, my dad smoked pretty much until the week he died. He never got lung cancer. But I don't think that he would have recommended smoking. Okay? I had an uncle who drank his entire life. Okay? He never had cirrhosis of the liver or anything like that. You know, he lived until he was 80. All right? Just because something does not happen to every single one does not mean that it is not valid. We have to stop being so stupid when we're trying to justify our own feelings that we run in the face of idiocy. Okay? And, oh, by the way, just because you're 53 or 40 something or whatever doesn't mean that you're out the woods, because sometimes these things take a long time to build up in a human body before it causes you a problem. And sometimes the people who see an immediate reaction are the lucky ones, because an immediate reaction actually gives you the opportunity to do something about it. But if something slowly deteriorates at your body until you get to a point where you cannot do anything about it, or it's just caused so much damage that now it's going to change your life, that's worse. And that's usually the case with people who have gone for an extended period of time doing something before they realize it's a problem. All right? Here's another thing. A lot of people fancy themselves as way more intelligent than what they are. All right? How many of you have heard people using this term, causation doesn't mean, correlation does not mean causation? You've heard people say that, right? And most of the people who are saying that don't even know where that comes from, and don't even really realize why that statement was even invented. Okay? That statement, for lack of a better word, is slippery lawyer talk. Okay? Where they can look at something dead ass that they know is the problem, but they can create some plausible deniability. Okay? For instance, like the people, regardless of where you stand on the matter, who are trying to justify that Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes is not really what caused him to die. It's because he was on fentanyl and all those different things like that. That's probably what caused him to die. Totally ignoring the fact that you kneeled on a human being's neck for 9 minutes. Right? We have to stop trying to be so smart that we outsmart ourselves and we sound like idiots. Right? And when somebody posts something like I posted about mouthwash, you know, the people that make me laugh the most are people, I'm still going to use my mouthwash. As if you're hurting me. You're not hurting me. Okay? If you want to use it, despite you hearing information about it, well, by all means, go ahead, my friend. You're not doing anything to me. You look like an idiot. You sound like an idiot because somebody just told you that something might be problematic, and you think you're hurting. It's like the kid that was on, the kid when we were kids on the playground when he dropped, I'm still gonna eat my candy, even though he dropped it. Like, yeah, go ahead, man. Got dog shit on it, but you want to eat that? Go ahead. You're not hurting me. You're making yourself look stupid, but you're not hurting me. And I think sometimes that's where we are in our society right now, where people are so programmed that they will literally literally, rather side with the companies that have been proven at this point to not care about their health, proven to give them toxic things, but just because they want to seem as if they're smart, they keep doing it. You know, there's an old quote from Mark Twain that kind of gives a little insight on that. It says it's easier to lie to a man than to convince a man he's being lied to. Maybe it's easier to poison a man than to tell a man he was so uneducated about stuff that he allowed himself to be poisoned. I think that's what it is. All right? I think that's what it is. Because for the life of me, if somebody told me that there was a product that I was consuming that was so problematic that it caused me to possibly have high blood pressure, the first thing in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what else does it cause? Okay, and the second thing is like, well, and mind you, I love to give people alternatives. So I gave you alternatives. So it's not like you don't have viable alternatives that will still get the job done. Okay? And even if you decide, oh, well, you know what, to hell with that, I'm still going to use it. You don't have to announce that to me because you're not hurting me. It's not like you're buying the mouthwash from me. It's not like you're buying the alternative from me. I get someone to understand if you're buying the alternative from me. This is just free information. Take it or leave it. All right? All right? You know, and Rocky Your Curves, you know, says people are hard-headed. Yes, people are hard-headed. You know, there's an old thing I heard a long time ago. And see if you can follow along. It says, when a fool jumps from an 80-floor window from an 80-floor building, for 79 floors, he swears he's flying. When a fool jumps from an 80-floor building for 79 floors, he swears he's flying. Some of you guys, I shouldn't say some of you guys, some people are speeding towards their death and demise. And just because they have not seen the warning lights or seen the crash coming, they think they're doing well. I had another gentleman who, and I don't mean to talk about nobody, but he was clearly not the picture of health. And he was bragging. He said, I use mouthwash and I use mouthwash that has alcohol in it. He made sure he specified that. And I use deodorant that has aluminum. And I'm 60 years old and still ticking. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, but you're 60 and you literally look like shit. You're overweight. You can tell you're inflamed. Just because you're alive doesn't mean you're living. But this is a perfect example of the person that jumped from an 80-floor building. Because just because he's not dead yet, he really believes he's thriving. And there's a difference, my people. There's a big difference between being alive and actually thriving. And many people, my friend, are not thriving. Not in a country that has 70% of the inhabitants on prescription drugs. I'm sorry, you're not thriving. Not a country that has 50% of its inhabitants that are obese. You're not thriving. Not a country that has 75% of its population that are overweight. You're not thriving. 1 in 3 of you, right, are the only ones that might be thriving. The rest, even if you're not sick, right, you're just not sick yet. And why is that? The sheer level of toxins that you're ingesting. Here's another thing I want to make people abundantly aware of. It was a report I read maybe about 5+ years back that morticians are using 50% less embalming fluid than they were in the 1950s. I'm going to say that again. Morticians are using 50% less embalming fluid than they were using maybe 70 years ago. Why? because the sheer levels of chemicals and preservatives that we're consuming, most people are literally cooking themselves slowly. So that when somebody dies these days, right? It used to be somebody died, the guy said the body would go bad in a couple of days. It would rot in a couple of days. You would catch the smell. He says now sometimes it can take a week. What do you think when you consume foods that have things like sodium benzoate in it to preserve freshness? That's exactly what it says on it, to preserve potassium benzoate. These things, they put them in meats, they put them in foods so these foods don't rot. They put them in your bread. They put things like brominated vegetable oil and oh God, I forget the other chemical's name now, but they put it in your bread so the bread doesn't go rancid. So how many people realize that when you eat store-bought bread or you buy store-bought bread these days, how many people realize that your store-bought bread takes a long time before it molds? See, I'm old enough to know that when my mom used to bake bread, or we used to buy bread, that bread would get hard and or mold within 3 to 4 days. Bread doesn't do that anymore. That bread can stay on your countertop for weeks and not mold. Okay? Potassium bromate is the name of it. Potassium bromate is the chemical. It can stay on. What do you think happens when you eat that? Because you have live tissue. It has that effect on it. All right? But what else is it doing? Because you may not care about your body rotting when you're dead. You're dead, you're dead. But what is it doing to you while you're alive? Think about the nerve problems it's causing, pain problems, inflammation, water retention. All right? Think about what it might be doing to your heart rate, to your circulation, to your sleep, to your hormonal balance. All right? Think about that. All right? Who's that right there? Who is Big Hawk? I'm not sure who Big Hawk is because I don't know that handle. Tell me your name, but you clearly know me from back in the day. Then there you go, and you're welcome. You're very welcome. But yeah, these are things that's in your food that no one's paying attention to, and I believe, and hopefully you guys think so as well, that somebody should be asking these questions. How are all these chemicals reacting to each other? Because we already know that some of these things, red dye number 40, causes behavior issue in kids. We already know that certain things are causing, your thyroid to malfunction. We already know certain things that you're consuming are causing your blood to clot improperly. Okay? We know this. We know that things are causing allergic reactions. I developed an allergic reaction to avocados for years until I cleaned my diet, took certain things out of my diet, and all of a sudden, bam, I don't have that problem anymore. So we know these things are causing something, and we know we can remove them from our systems and do better. But we don't know how these things are interacting with each other. All right? How many people have put baking soda down, right, and then squeezed lime on it? Right? That's a reaction. What happens when these different chemicals are getting in your body? What reaction is it causing? Okay? And how is that mixture then affecting you? Because maybe you can tell me what one chemical is doing and you say, oh, it's fine, right? But they don't have to tell you how another chemical interacts with that and how that affects your body, and whether or not the doses of those two are fine. And we're just sitting there eating these processed foods. Do you know that? Do you notice how much people have gotten bigger over the last couple of years? How much more inflammation? Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, they're growing, they're sticking more growth hormones and stuff in your livestock. They're Even the fertilizer and or the things they're using to grow your fruit and vegetables are not the best. All right. And sadly, people are asleep. And I don't know, maybe it's that they just have fatigue. And I do know I would definitely agree that sometimes there's a lot of conflicting and misleading information on social media. And I will agree with you on that. All right. But, you know, the late Dr. Martin Luther King said something that was very profound. All right. And that is, there is nothing more dangerous than willful ignorance and conscientious stupidity. If you hear information on something that you're eating, and this is why I always try to do, not only do I give this information to people, but when I give this information to people, I also give them alternatives. So I give you a decent caption where you can find an alternative. I give you sources. So if I give you information and point you in the right direction and you do not take that information, all right? Well, every time you encounter something that was mentioned there and you don't know more about it to where you can protect yourself, arm yourself, do something better, well, that, my friend, is what's called willful ignorance. You are only ignorant because you are willingly ignorant because you refuse to take the information. And every time you act thereafter, okay, with your prior knowledge, you're now being conscientiously stupid because now you're putting yourself in harm's way, especially knowing that there's information that you have willfully ignored just to keep doing the same thing. And a lot of times that same thing is not even producing results you want. Okay? It's not. And that's where insanity comes in, when you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. All right? I will never claim to be the smartest person there is on the planet. My mother didn't think I was that. My mother thought I was brilliant, but she didn't care about my opinion. And so I don't give people my opinions. Anything I put out, I back it with facts. And I ask you, don't take my word for it. Please look it up. Because trust and believe, before I bring you information, I have looked it up. I have checked the sources. I have kicked the tires. There's so much stuff I could if it was just by, just blurting out stuff. There's so much stuff all the time. I don't do that. I don't engage in conspiracies. No, because I believe that you should give people good information. And so I check into this stuff. Okay? So, who is this? Now you're making... Since I lost 70 pounds. Okay, now you really got me curious on who you are now. Okay. But either way, it's all good. You're very welcome and thank you. But at least check into the information, people. All right? At least check into the information. All right? Do yourself that favor. That's one thing, anyone that knows me, I don't really like being wrong. Not to the point where of arrogance, but I don't like to give people wrong information. So before I say something, I check into it. I check the sources. I try to get multiple sources, multiple angles on the same thing. And sometimes when you do that, you find out, oh, that was just BS. But, some things are not. And especially when it comes down to your health, things that you're putting in your body. I cannot understand the person who will still willfully consume something that they have been told is problematic, especially when there are alternatives. Okay? So we go back to the original advice. When it comes down to eating, if the food didn't exist in 1900, don't eat it. If you can follow that piece of advice and let 90% of your diet be dictated by that, you'd be much better off. Because, yeah, you will probably still come into contact with chemicals and additives, but the volume will be significantly less, and therefore you would probably be well within the range of the quote-unquote generally regarded as safe. But we can't be ignorant and just ignore, all right? Because when we put these things in our bodies, after a while, well, these things add up. And then when the problems start to happen, they usually come fast and furious. And a lot of times at that point, there's very little you can do about it. So as they say, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Right? Because once again, we do know that these things, these chemicals do not belong in the human body. That's number one. Number two, we do know that they have an effect. And sadly, for many of us, we don't know what the total effect really is. So we really don't want to be putting things in our bodies that is just unnecessary. And like I said, it will be different with me. I educate people on the past because I think the past, understanding the past, helps us put things in proper perspective. So when people say to me, "Oh, well, my grandparents, they ate such and such," yeah, but the food that even the milk your grandparents drank in America, it's not the same milk. It's not the same milk, guys. The milk they were drinking back then was actual, maybe raw milk. You can't get raw milk anymore. The milk you're getting, the conventional milk, not only, okay, does it have RBGH, recumbent bovine growth hormone. And for people who don't know what recumbent bovine growth hormone is, this is a tongue twister. Recumbent bovine growth hormone is a growth hormone they give the cows in American dairy to make the cows produce more milk. Now, what's wrong with that? Okay, what's wrong with that is that, right, is loaded with growth hormone, and that growth hormone, when you ingest it, increases your rates and chances of getting breast cancer and accelerates tumor growth. I don't think you really want that. Okay, and when we look at the use of that and we look at the growth of breast cancer in America, you can see that, and so when people try to say, well, correlation doesn't mean causation, all right, well, go ahead and keep, as I say, keep fucking around. You fuck around, you find out. All right, and that's what a lot of people are doing. They're finding out. I don't think you really want to find out that bad. All right, especially given that our dairy is banned in many places in the world because of the recumbent bovine growth hormone that's added in. All right? But somehow it's not banned here. We have to be very mindful of these things. All right? Like I say, the start of your health journey, all right? I'm going to go back to the 3 steps of healing. Very simple. All right. Number 1, identify the foods that are causing you issues. All right. And that is going to be most of your box, your packaged foods, your processed foods. Eliminate those things from your diet. That'll stop the toxic stuff from coming into your system. All right. The next thing is cleanse and detoxify your body. Because those chemicals, they stay in your body, they linger in your body unless you physically remove them. You have to do a cleanse. And we're not just talking about going and getting a colonoscopy or something like that. You have to do a full cleanse and then also develop a daily detox routine. There's natural ways you can do it. There's supplements you can take as well. All right. The next thing is when you change your diet, eat whole foods, real foods, organic fruit and vegetables, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised eggs, grass-fed beef, real food. That is what 90 to 95% of your diet is supposed to look like. Drink good, clean water. You don't have to spend your money on fancy, schmancy water. Good spring water or mineral water is the best one you can get. All right? And you can get it for a relatively cheap price. All right? Relatively cheap price. Last but not least, after you've done all those things, and you incorporate a little bit of exercise, all right, even if you just walk, the last thing is then you look for good quality supplements. Remember, we're carbon-based beings, so our bodies prioritize what? Minerals. After minerals, then you look for antioxidants and things that help to reduce the effect of free radicals in your body, to reduce oxidative stress on your body. And then you also look for things that can help and enhance your body, like boosting your hormone levels, boosting your growth hormone and the other hormones that your body relies on for good balance. That's the formula. Very simple. All right? But you have to do it that way if you want to really enjoy this life. Especially if you're somebody that's quote unquote thriving financially, right? One of the worst things to see, when I was a financial advisor, I used to see this all the time. People would sit in front of me, they had stacked retirements, but I'll be looking at them and say, there's no way you're gonna make it to retirement. And even if you did make it to retirement, you won't be able to enjoy that money because you're gonna be sick. And sadly, I was right in many of those cases. There's nothing worse than working hard to the point where you have enough money to actually be able to enjoy life, but you can't enjoy life because of simple decisions you made about your health earlier on that now have you pinned down. All right? It's not somewhere you really want to be. All right? So let's change that diet up. Cleanse and detoxify your body. Yes, you can find the detox stack you can find on the website, TitusUnlimited.com. The detox stack is there. Take a look also at the essential nutrients bundle. We talk about giving your body the proper nutrients. The essential nutrients bundle is definitely a good addition, to a good healthy diet. All right, gives you all your essential nutrients, the things I just talked about, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, and things that also boost and enhance hormone balance. All right, so. Anyway, but that's all I have for you guys. Happy Wellness Wednesday. And like I said, let's try to bring awareness to these things. But, when you hear people saying things that are just, when I hear people saying things that are just asinine, like, come on, guys, let's do better. All right? Exactly. You see that I know Monica Rouse is enjoying retirement, healthy, happy, energetic, in good physical condition, yeah. Don't be like most people who, by the time they get to 60, they limping across the line and they can't do anything else for themselves. And don't do that, especially since it's so avoidable. Just by taking better care and taking precautions. All right? Anyway, take it easy, guys.